So if you think about it, usually when we talk about how things are made, there's this very comforting, clear distinction between the maker and the materials.
Right, a boundary.
Exactly. Like, let's say you decide to build a brick wall in your backyard. You have the mason, the person doing the sweating, the calculating, the stacking, and then you have the bricks.
Two completely separate entities.
Yeah, entirely separate. You would never look at a brick and think, yes, this fired piece of clay is actually the mason's consciousness.
No, of course not. That would be absurd.
Right. It's binary. There is the creator and there is the created.
It's clean, and it makes logical sense to our human brains because, well, that's how our entire physical reality seems to operate. Cause and effect, subject and object.
But then you step into the world of ancient philosophical theology, and specifically when you look at traditions attempting to describe an ultimate infinite creator, you're immediately hit with this absolutely mind-bending logical paradox.
Oh, it really is a paradox.
Right. If an ultimate infinite reality created the universe, what materials did it use?
Exactly.
Like, think about that for a second, if you're listening right now. If this reality is truly infinite, by definition, there's no outside of it. There's no cosmic hardware store it can run to for supplies.
Right. There's no pre-existing void filled with building blocks.
So logically, wouldn't an infinite creator have to build the universe out of itself?
It is the absolute definition of a philosophical paradigm shift. I mean, the moment you accept the premise of a truly infinite source, you are no longer looking at a creator who makes a universe, but a creator who becomes the universe.
Becomes the universe.
Yeah, you move from the concept of an architect to, like, the concept of a seed.
And that profound shift is exactly where we're going today. So welcome to this deep dive. Our mission today is to explore a radically different way of viewing reality, creation, and honestly, even your own human ego.
It gets deeply personal.
It really does. We're taking a magnifying glass to some incredibly dense, deeply philosophical source material today, specifically a textual analysis of a philosophy originally known as Brahmavad,
which later became famous under the name Shuddhadvaita, or pure non-dualism.
Right. And this all sits within the Vallabha Vedanta tradition of Indian philosophy.
And we should probably establish right up front that we are looking at treatises by some truly foundational heavyweight thinkers here.
Yeah, we're not talking about casual essays.
No, not at all. Scholars like Harayaji, Gopeshwarji, and Giridharji, I mean, these were intellectual giants who grappled with the ultimate nature of existence. They weren't just asking, why are we here, in some sort of vague poetic sense.
They wanted the mechanics.
Exactly. They were asking, what are we fundamentally made of at the most granular metaphysical level? And the answers they arrived at, well, they challenge almost every default assumption we have about the physical world.
Which means we are going to have to break our brains a little bit to follow their logic.
Definitely.
We're talking about treatises that dissect the very fabric of reality, translating dense Sanskrit terminology, and walking through the underlying mechanics of how a universe actually emanates from a single point.
It's a lot to unpack.
So let's start right at the foundation. To even begin to understand these specific treatises, we have to establish the baseline philosophy that started it all, which is this concept of Brahmavad. What exactly does that word mean in this context?
Well, what's fascinating here is how far back this specific term and its underlying concept go. The word Brahmavad is rooted deeply in the ancient Shruti literature, specifically the Vedas, which are incredibly old. Oh, yeah. Some of the oldest layers of Sanskrit literature in human history.
Yeah.
Now, the term Brahman in this context does not refer to, a deity in the sky with a long white beard.
Right. It's not the guy on the cloud.
Exactly. It refers to the ultimate supreme reality, the absolute infinite ground of all being. And the suffix vad translates roughly to the doctrine, the discourse, or the philosophy of.
So Brahmavad is essentially the doctrine of Brahman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the philosophy that states very simply, Brahman is everything.
And the source text brings up an incredible question from the Rig Veda to illustrate just how old this inquiry really is.
It's such a great quote.
It is. The ancient sages are basically looking around at the heavens and the earth, and they ask a very practical, almost like architectural question. They ask, from which wood, from which tree was heaven and earth carved?
It's a beautiful metaphor because they're specifically asking about the material cause. Like, what is the stuff the universe is made of?
Right. Where did the lumber come from?
Yes. And the answer, which comes from another foundational text called the Taittiriya Brahmana, is stunning in its brevity. The text answers, Brahman was the wood, Brahman was the tree.
Wow.
Think about what that implies for our earlier mason and brick analogy. The ancient texts are declaring that the carver, the material being carved, and the final carved product are all exactly the same entity.
Okay, let's unpack this carefully because I feel like it's really easy to just nod along without grasping the actual physics of it.
It's very easy to just let it sound poetic.
Right, but it's mechanical. Normally, when a carpenter builds a table, the carpenter is what philosophers call the efficient cause.
Right.
That means the intelligence, the intent, the force doing the work. The wood, on the other hand, is the material cause, the inert stuff being worked on.
Yes, exactly.
But here, Brahmavad argues that the carpenter is the wood and is the table. There is literally no separation between the intelligence that designs the universe and the matter that forms the universe.
Precisely. And if we connect this to the broader terminology of Vedanta philosophy, this specific concept is known as apinna nimitta padana.
Okay, I'm going to need you to break that Sanskrit down for us. That's a mouthful.
I know, it's a lot, absolutely. Yeah. So apinna means non-different or inseparable.
Okay, inseparable.
Nimitta refers to the efficient cause, so the maker, and upadana refers to the material cause, the stuff.
So apinna nimitta padana means the inseparable, efficient, and material cause.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In this view, the universe isn't a byproduct of God. It's not, a painting that God painted and then stepped away from to admire in a gallery. The physical universe is a literal manifestation of Brahman.
Brahman transformed a part of itself to become the physical universe.
Yes, and crucially, without losing its own essential infinite nature in the process.
But hold on, let me push back on this. No. Because if the carpenter is the wood and the table, then everything I interact with, like a tree, a rock, a coffee mug, my own hands, is essentially a localized expression of this ultimate reality.
That is the logical conclusion, yes.
But historically, beautiful, unifying ideas like this usually get dragged into theological turf wars.
Oh, invariably.
Which brings up a bizarre historical mystery in our source text. If Brahmavad, this incredibly pure descriptive doctrine of Brahman being everything, is such a perfect name, why did this entire philosophical movement rebrand itself centuries later?
It's a great question.
Why did it become famous worldwide as Shuddhadvaita?
It is a fascinating pivot, and our source text sheds some highly critical light on it. It reveals a surprising historical nugget. Vallabhacharya, who was the 15th century founder of this specific philosophical path, and his immediate successors, they never actually used the term Shuddhadvaita as the primary name for their philosophy.
Wait, really? Never?
If you look at their main original foundational works, the term simply does not appear.
Which is wild. I mean, that is like finding out the founders of a major political or artistic movement never actually used the name that the movement is known by today.
It's exactly like that.
The text notes the term Shuddhadvaita, which translates to pure non-dualism, only really gained traction much later in history, during the era of subsequent scholars like Balkrishna Bhatta and Yogi Gopeshwarji.
Right, centuries later.
So why the shift? Like, why change the name on the door centuries after the house was built?
The text suggests it was essentially a defensive polemical move. It was a strategic intellectual maneuver against a massive rival philosophical school.
Oh, a rival school.
Yeah. Specifically, it was a counter-argument to the great philosopher Shankara and his doctrine of Mayavada, or illusionism.
Okay, let's make sure we define Shankara's position clearly, because it really is the foil to everything we're talking about today.
Absolutely.
Shankara's philosophy basically argues that the ultimate reality, Brahman, is pure, formless, and completely unchanging.
Right.
Therefore, the physical, diverse, changing universe we see around us, the rocks, the trees, the changing seasons, cannot possibly be real. Shankara calls the physical world Maya, which is often translated as an illusion or like a cosmic unreality.
A trick of our perception.
Right.
So Shankara argued for a concept called Kevaladvaita, which is absolute non-dualism. In his view, only the formless Brahman is real and the world is ultimately false.
Okay, I see where this is going.
But the followers of Vallabha strongly disagreed with the illusion part, because remember, their whole foundation, Brahmavad, is that the physical universe is a real, deliberate manifestation of Brahman.
It's made of the wood.
Exactly, it's the wood. So, to counter Shankara's massive influence, the later thinkers of Vallabha's tradition adopted the name Shuddhadvaita. Shuddha means pure, and Advaita means non-dual.
Ah, so they were planting a flag.
Exactly. By calling it pure non-dualism, they were arguing that Brahman connects to the world and becomes the world without the impurity or the middleman of Maya.
I see.
They were saying to Shankar's followers, our non-dualism is pure. Your non-dualism is tainted because you have to invent this concept of illusion to explain the world away.
But, I mean, this feels incredibly dangerous.
How so?
It's like a company rebranding entirely just to spite a competitor. Like, if you define your entire philosophy simply by saying, we are not that other guy's philosophy, you reduce a profound, expansive worldview into a mere counter-argument.
That's a really sharp observation.
You lose your own core message. You go from a beautiful, affirmative idea like everything is God to a defensive posture. We're the ones who don't believe in the illusion thing.
And this raises an important question about human nature, doesn't it? It asks you, the listener, to consider how often we define our own beliefs, our politics, or our identities merely in opposition to what we dislike.
We do that all the time.
We say, I am not that, rather than standing on a foundational, positive truth of what we actually are. And our source text is very critical of this historical shift.
It actually calls them out.
Yes. It argues that by adopting Shuddhavaita as the primary name, the tradition accidentally boxed itself in. It became defined by a debate rather than its own primary revelation.
And as the text shows, that defensive box turned out to be a massive grammatical nightmare.
Oh, it really did.
Because when you define a philosophy purely in opposition to another, you eventually have to rigidly define your new terms to defend them in these like high-stakes intellectual debates.
Stuck in the weeds.
Yeah. The later authors, like Giridharji in his famous treatise Shuddhavaita Markanda, tried to strictly define the grammar of the compound word Shuddhavaita.
And trying to map infinite reality onto Sanskrit grammar is, well, it caused massive conceptual headaches, as our source text painstakingly points out.
It gets deeply analytical here, but I know it's crucial to understand why words matter. Giridharji tried to define Shuddhavaita grammatically as either a Karmatharaya or a Tatpurusha compound in Sanskrit.
Yes.
Okay, I have to be honest, we cannot gloss over that jargon. What do those grammatical terms actually mean, and why do they change the nature of God?
Fair enough. Let's break it down. Let's use English equivalents.
Please.
A Karmatharaya compound is when two words in a compound describe the exact same entity. Think of the word bluebird.
Okay, bluebird.
The bird is blue, the blue thing is a bird. They are absolutely identical in reference.
Got it.
Now, a Tatpurusha compound involves a relationship of dependence, often using the word of, like king's man or town square.
Okay, so it's a relationship between two things.
Exactly. And Giridharji was using these structures to essentially say that Shuddhavaita means the absolute sameness, the non-difference between the pure universe and pure Brahman.
So he was trying to lock down a strict cause and effect relationship.
Yes. Brahman is the pure cause, the universe is the pure effect, and grammatically, they are the exact same thing.
But the source text pushes back on Giridharji hard here.
Very hard.
It argues that defining the infinite this rigidly is severely limiting. By focusing only on the cause and effect relationship, like the clay and the pot, Giridharji is accidentally ignoring a whole spectrum of other vital, intimate relationships that the original concept of Brahmavad encompasses.
What's fascinating here is the nuance the source text demands. It points out that Brahman's relationship to the world is multifaceted. Yes, it's cause and effect, but it's also part and whole, which in Sanskrit is amsha amshi.
Part and whole.
Right. It's also attribute and substance, which is dharma dharmi. And it is based and supported atara atheya.
So if you just say cause and effect, you miss the richness of how the infinite actually interacts with the finite.
Exactly. You reduce it to a mechanical process.
Let's zoom in on that attribute and substance relationship, the dharma dharmi. If everything truly is Brahman, then trying to conceptually separate the universe on one side and Brahman on the other, just so you can smash them back together grammatically and say they are non-dual. I mean, it's a paradox.
It's totally paradoxical.
As the source text notes, it's like trying to separate the light from the sun.
That is the perfect analogy to understand this text. Think about the light emanating from the sun. It isn't the sun itself, right?
Right. You wouldn't look at a warm sunbeam resting on your living room floor and say, that literal thing on my rug is a 10,000-degree ball of plasma.
No, you'd burn up. But at the very same time, that light cannot exist apart from the sun. It has no independent reality.
Right. If you extinguish the sunbeam vanishes instantly.
Exactly. It shares an identity with its source. They are inextricably linked, yet functionally distinct in our experience.
So when Giridharji tries to use rigid grammar to cleanly define pure universe equals pure Brahman, he's almost trying to freeze the sunbeam, cut it off, measure it separately from the sun, and then declare them identical.
That's a great way to picture it.
Yeah.
And the source text is saying, no, you have to embrace the dynamic, flowing, uncapturable relationship. Brahmavad isn't just a static equation of cause and effect. It's a living, breathing emanation.
And this grammatical nitpicking, I mean, it isn't just academic shadowboxing.
Not at all.
It fundamentally changes how you, as a living person, view the world. Like, if you only see the world as a mechanical effect of God, the creator feels very distant.
Like a watchmaker.
Right, the watchmaker who winds the clock and walks away. But if you see the world as an attribute of the divine substance, the way heat is an attribute of fire, then the world becomes instantly intimate.
It's right here.
The divine isn't just the architect who built the house. The divine is the very heat of the fire you are warming your hands over.
It completely collapses the distance between you and the infinite.
Okay, that is profound, but I have to stop you here. I'm going to play the skeptic for a second, because this worldview brings up a massive, glaring question about reality.
Okay, lay it on me.
If the universe and everything in it, the table, the sunbeam, a rock, a blade of grass, you, me, if it is all literally made of Brahman, how do we explain the incredibly obvious everyday differences around us?
The diversity problem.
Yeah. I mean, a rock is inert and dumb. A human being can compose a symphony and feel existential dread. If both are purely Brahman, why don't they look, feel, and act the exact same way?
This is the ultimate riddle of diversity. If everything is one, why on earth does it look like many?
Exactly.
And to solve this without falling back on Shaikar's idea of Maya, without saying that diversity is just an illusion, the source text introduces two incredibly elegant mechanical concepts.
Okay, what are they?
They are Avirbhava, which means manifestation, and Tiropava, which means concealment.
Manifestation and concealment. Okay, how does this mechanism actually work?
Well, to understand this, we have to look at the three core elements that make up the essence of Brahman. According to this tradition, Brahman is fundamentally composed of Sat, which translates to existence or being.
Okay, Sat is existence.
Right. Then there's Chit, which is consciousness or knowledge.
Shit is consciousness.
And finally, Ananda, which is bliss or joy.
So Sat, Chit, Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss.
Yes. And because everything is Brahman, every single atom in the universe contains these three elements.
And then this has to be the catch. They aren't always fully expressed at the same time.
Exactly. This is where the mechanics of Avirbhava, manifestation, and Tiropava, concealment, come into play. Let's take an inanimate object like the rock we mentioned, or, the chair you're sitting on.
Okay, my chair.
In that chair, only the Sat aspect, the pure existence, is manifested. Avirbhava, the chair exists, it is real, it occupies space.
Right, it's holding me up.
But the Chit, consciousness, and Ananda, bliss aspects of Brahman are concealed, Tirohita. They are hidden within that chair.
Yeah.
They're absolutely present, but they are hidden from function.
So think of it like a smartphone that comes preloaded with different apps running in the background.
Okay, I like that.
Like the apps are installed on every single phone that leaves the factory, but on the rock phone or the chair phone, only the existence app is open on the screen.
Right.
The consciousness and bliss apps are minimized. They're technically taking up hard drive space, but the rock cannot interact with them.
That analogy holds up perfectly. Now, let's step up the ladder of complexity to a living soul, a human being,
Right.
what the text calls a jiva.
Okay, us.
In you and me, the Sat existence is manifested, and the Chit consciousness is also manifested. We exist, and we are fiercely aware that we exist.
Right, we can think, learn, observe, philosophize. Let me push back here. Because if I exist, and I know I exist, that covers Sat and Chit. But humans are miserable half the time. We're anxious, depressed, constantly wanting more. So where did the bliss go?
That is the exact crux of it. In the human soul, Ananda, or pure bliss, is concealed.
Wow.
And this concealment of bliss is the tradition's profound explanation for the entirety of the human condition. It is why humans suffer, why we feel a chronic sense of lack, and why we spend our entire lives tirelessly seeking happiness, love, wealth, and fulfillment.
Because we're missing it.
We are fundamentally constructed out of pure bliss, but that bliss has been intentionally concealed from our immediate experience.
Yeah.
We're desperately searching the outside world for something that is already our core hidden nature.
We are literally built out of joy, but the joy is muted. I mean, that is an incredibly potent way to look at human psychology.
That really reframes everything.
We're homesick for a feeling we are actually made of.
Beautifully said.
And to complete the triad, I assume the text explains that in the Supreme Lord, the ultimate reality or Purushottama, there is no concealment.
Right. In the ultimate state, all three, Sat, Chit, and Ananda, are fully, brilliantly manifested.
The apps are all running at full capacity simultaneously.
Exactly. And this mechanism of manifestation and concealment is brilliant because it solves the problem of diversity without denying the reality of the physical world.
Right. The rock isn't an illusion.
No, it is a very real, tangible manifestation of divine existence, just with consciousness and bliss temporarily hidden. God didn't create a secondary, lesser substance like matter to make the world.
God just hid parts of himself to create the drama and diversity of the universe.
Exactly.
But this leads to a really practical, everyday contradiction. Like, let's look at the implications of this. Here's the tension. We just established that the physical world, the rock, the tree, the earth, the water, is a real, deliberate manifestation of Brahman.
It is objectively divine.
Yes. But if you read almost any spiritual text from any tradition, they almost always tell you to detach from the world.
Oh, constantly. Renounce worldly things.
Right. But if the world is literally God manifesting as matter, why on earth are we supposed to reject it? Are they telling us to renounce God?
It seems like a massive, irreconcilable contradiction, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If the world is divine, shouldn't a spiritual person embrace it completely?
You would think so.
To resolve this tension, the text brings in a crucial, razor-sharp distinction from one of Vallabhaji's most important treatises, called the Prapancha Samsara Bodhavada.
Okay, Prapancha and Samsara.
Yes. This treatise separates our experience of reality into two totally distinct concepts, Prapancha and Samsara.
Okay, we need to break these down thoroughly. Let's start with Prapancha. What exactly does that encompass?
Prapancha is the actual objective physical universe. The mountains, the rivers, the planets, the biology of your body, the wood of the tree, the stuff. According to the text, Prapancha is created by God out of his own essence. Therefore, it is entirely real, it is divine, it is true, and it is entirely without fault. It is the playground of the divine.
So the physical stuff is unequivocally good.
Yeah.
Then what is the bad stuff? What is samsara?
Samsara is the cycle of worldly existence, but it is specifically defined here as a purely psychological state.
Psychological, not physical.
Entirely psychological. It is the subjective world characterized by two powerful concepts, ahanta and mamata.
Ahanta and mamata.
In English, that translates to I and mine.
Mm-hmm.
Samsara is not the physical world. It is the psychological web of attachments, aversions, ego, ownership, and pride that humans project onto the physical world.
Ah, I see.
It's a hallucination created by our own ignorance, our avidya.
Okay, think about what this means for your own life, if you're listening. Let's say you plant a beautiful oak tree in your front yard. The physical wood, the green leaves, the roots pulling water from the soil, that is Prapancha.
Yeah.
It is real, it's a manifestation of Brahman, it is undeniably divine. But, and here's the kicker, the concept in your head that says, that is my tree. My neighbor better not let his dog near my tree. If my tree doesn't grow faster and look nicer than the tree across the street, I am a failure as a homeowner.
We all know that feeling.
Right, that entire narrative, that ego-driven attachment, possessiveness, and anxiety, that is samsara. That is the illusion.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this distinction changes everything about how you practice spirituality.
It really does.
It means you do not have to reject the physical world to be spiritual. You don't have to run away to a cave, starve yourself, and pretend the tree doesn't exist.
The tree is God.
Exactly. What you have to reject is your ego's false projection onto the tree. You have to actively dismantle the concepts of I and mine.
You are rejecting the buggy psychological software you installed, not the divine hardware of the universe.
That's a perfect way to phrase it. When a profound spiritual teacher says, abandon the world, they're not saying, hate the physical matter. They are saying, abandon samsara.
Abandon your self-centered, possessive worldview.
Right. And when you destroy samsara through deep knowledge and devotion, Prapancha doesn't disappear. The oak tree is still standing in your yard.
But your relationship to it changes completely.
Entirely. You now see the tree not as your property to defend, but as a pure manifestation of Brahman. The world transforms from a source of constant anxiety into an object of divine play.
Which is incredibly liberating. I mean, you can live in the world, appreciate the beauty of the physical universe without being trapped by your ego's possessiveness.
It's a very joyful way to live.
But let's push the boundaries of this even further. We've talked extensively about the nature of the created world. Let's turn the lens back to the ultimate nature of the creator itself.
Okay, diving into the deep end.
Having established that the world is a real manifestation with form, our source material forces us to ask, what is the form of God? And the treatises by Giridharji and others present a view that is going to, well, severely test our logical limits.
Yes, they introduce the concept of Sakar Brahmavad.
Sakar Brahmavad.
To understand why this is such a controversial stance, you have to know that many philosophical schools, especially Shankara's, argue forcefully that the ultimate reality must be nirguna without attributes and nirakar without form.
Why do they argue that?
Their logic is that to have a form is inherently to be limited, like a circle is not a square. Therefore, having the form of a circle puts a boundary on infinity.
Right, if you have a shape, you have edges.
Exactly. So they see Brahman as a kind of formless, infinite void, or pure, undifferentiated consciousness.
But our source text draws a line in the sand and says, no.
A very firm no.
It argues for Sakar Brahmavad. It says Brahman is not just an empty void. Brahman does have a form, Sakar, but, and this is the crucial caveat that makes it work, it is an apocryph form.
Yes,
a purely divine, non-material form.
What's fascinating here is how the text defends this idea of a form that doesn't limit infinity. To defend this, it introduces a principle called Viruddha Dharmashrayatva.
Wow, okay. Viruddha Dharmashrayatva.
I know, it's quite the word. This is the ability of Brahman to harbor entirely contradictory attributes simultaneously.
Wait, I have to challenge this. Contradictory attributes simultaneously. Logic dictates that a thing cannot be two opposing things at once.
According to human logic, yes.
Like a light switch is either on or off. A particle is either moving or stationary. How can an infinite reality be defined by breaking basic logic?
Because if Brahman is truly infinite, truly the source of all things, it cannot be bound by human logic. Think about it. If human logic could perfectly contain, measure, and explain God, then God wouldn't be infinite. God would just be a subset of human reasoning.
Oh.
Logic would be supreme over God.
Right, logic would be the actual God.
Exactly. But because Brahman is sarva bhavana samartha, capable of becoming absolutely everything, it must inherently encompass all possibilities, even the ones that fiercely contradict each other in our limited physical dimension.
So it demands that we completely surrender our worldly binaries.
Yeah.
We look at the physical world and say, a thing cannot be hot and cold at the exact same time, or a thing cannot be the microscopic size of an atom and the macroscopic size of a galaxy at the same time.
But the source text says that if a reality is truly infinite, it must encompass all contradictions. It can be entirely formless, and it can possess a distinct form. It can be in furious motion, and it can be utterly still.
Viruddha Dharmashrayatva.
It is a humbling reminder that the ultimate reality is inherently paradoxical to the limited human mind. It invites awe, rather than just intellectual comprehension.
It's the ultimate both hand rather than either.
Exactly. The moment you say God cannot have a form, you have placed a limit on the limitless. Therefore, God must be capable of possessing a divine form while remaining formless.
That is a staggering concept. It basically tells the intellect, you can come this far, you can understand the mechanics, but no further. At a certain point, you just have to marvel at the paradox.
You have to just stand in awe of it.
All right, let's zoom out from the micromechanics and the paradoxes. As we approach the end of the text, it provides a kind of master map, detailing how all these concepts form the foundation of this specific school of thought and how it measures up against the other major philosophical schools of India.
The grand architecture.
Let's look at that architecture.
So the text elegantly summarizes the 8 pillars of Shuddhadvaita. We've organically touched on several already today.
Right, like Brahmavad.
Yes, the foundational idea that everything is Brahman.
Yeah.
Then there is Karyavada, the idea that the effect pre-exists in the cause, just like the table exists potentially within the wood before it's carved.
And we covered Avirpava and Tirupava.
Manifestation and concealment, which explains diversity. But perhaps the most beautiful, emotionally resonant pillar is the concept of creation as Leela.
Leela, the divine play.
Yes.
I want to spend some time here because this answers the ultimate why question. Like, why did an infinite, perfect, self-sufficient reality bother creating a universe full of rocks, trees, and humans with egos in the first place?
It is the ultimate question. If Brahman is already full of absolute bliss, remember the Ananda aspect? It doesn't need anything. It is complete.
It has no lack.
Exactly. It didn't create the universe out of necessity. It didn't create it because it was lonely or because it lacked something or because it was compelled by some external force.
So why do it?
It created the universe purely out of Leela, which translates to divine sport or play.
Let's explore the nature of play for a second. Think about why humans play. We work to earn money. We eat to end hunger. We sleep to cure fatigue. Almost everything we do is driven by a lack or a need.
We're constantly trying to fill a void.
But play is the only action we undertake purely for its own sake. You play a game simply because the act of playing is joyful.
Exactly. Creation was a joyful, spontaneous overflowing of bliss. Brahman willed to become many, just to experience the sheer joy of relationship, of manifestation, of hide and seek.
I mean, that reframes the entire purpose of existence.
It really does.
If you internalize this, the universe isn't a cosmic test you have to pass. It's not a punishment for original sin. It's not a cold, random cosmic mistake. It is literally an expression of divine joy.
The universe exists because God thought it would be delightful to experience himself in infinite, diverse forms.
And the pain and struggle of human life are just the temporary concealment of bliss, making the eventual rediscovery of that bliss all the more joyful.
Like finding someone in hide and seek. And if we connect this final pillar to the comparative map the text provides, it really highlights how uniquely affirmative Shuddha-Dvaita is as a philosophy.
How does it compare to the others?
Well, the text positions this school against the other historical heavyweights. You have Shankara's Kevaladvaita, which says the ultimate truth is formless and the world is an illusion.
Right, the Maya.
Then you have Ramanuja's Vishishtadvaita, which argues for a qualified non-dualism, where the world is real but acts almost like the physical body of God, distinct but inseparable.
And then, standing entirely on its own, you have Shuddha-Dvaita.
Yes. Shuddha-Dvaita asserts that the dualism we experience, the difference between you and me, the difference between the stone and the river, is not a mistake, it is not a hallucination, and it is not an illusion.
It's intentional.
It is a real, intentional, and joyful manifestation of a purely non-dual God. The many are real, and the one is real. The diversity is the deliberate art of the singular artist, painted using the canvas and the colors of its own infinite being.
It is a worldview that fiercely validates the physical experience while maintaining the ultimate spiritual unity. It doesn't ask you to hate the world. It asks you to see the world properly.
Exactly. See the prapancha, lose the samsara.
All right, we've covered a massive amount of dense philosophical ground today.
We really went deep.
We started by looking at the pure, ancient vision of Brahmavad, the idea that the infinite creator is both the carpenter and the wood.
And we saw how historical rivalries led to a rebranding to Shuddha-Dvaita.
Right, a move that sometimes trapped the philosophy in rigid grammatical debates about cause and effect, risking the loss of that intimate part and whole relationship, the sun and the sunbeam.
We also unlock the mechanics of how the one becomes the many through manifestation and concealment of Virbhava and Tirvava.
Realizing that we are all fundamentally made of existence, consciousness, and bliss, even if the bliss app is currently minimized in our human experience.
That's such a great analogy. And we drew that vital, liberating distinction between prapancha, the real, divine, physical universe, and samsara, the illusory, anxiety-inducing, ego-driven world of I and mine.
And finally, we pushed our logical limits with the concept of a God who possesses an unearthly form and harbors impossible contradictions simultaneously.
Viruddhadharmashriyatva.
Creating the universe not out of desperate need, but out of pure, spontaneous, joyful Leela.
Divine play.
We started this deep dive talking about the materials of the universe, the realization that if reality is infinite, it must be made of itself.
The wood and the tree.
Exactly. And I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over today, building specifically on the text's concept of avirbhava manifestation.
If this philosophy holds true, if nothing is ever truly created out of thin air, and nothing is ever truly destroyed into nothingness, but rather everything is merely manifested or concealed from the eternal fabric of Brahman,
then consider the trajectory of your own life.
Every ounce of potential you possess, every deep joy you will ever feel, every sorrow you will ever endure, every brilliant idea you will ever... It already exists.
It exists perfectly within the infinite fabric of reality right now, just waiting for the exact right moment to be unconcealed.
You aren't creating your life from scratch, frantically trying to build something out of nothing. You are simply witnessing the breathtaking manifestation of what was already there, hidden in the depths of the divine.
Let that sink in for a moment. You are the universe, slowly, joyfully unhiding itself.
It's beautiful.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through the mind. Step outside today, look at the physical world around you, look at the prapancha, and try, just for a moment, to see the carpenter in the wood.